believe we can begin this session. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening from Nairobi. My name is Anne Waithaka, Senior Communications Officer from the African Population and Health Research Center. Our session today is the fifth in our webinar series, Mastering Good Grant Practice, and most of you have been joining us for this very insightful and interactive sessions. And we are glad as we wind down the year that you're parts of this movement towards good grant practice. So today we'll delve into matters HR, and we'll have our expert speaker Nancy Kangete, and we'll learn more about her shortly. And yes, thank you, Nancy. She'll be leading us through the do's and don'ts of HR and how HR comes in terms of grant and project management. So for this webinar, if I can just share the rundown of how we will flow. We will have a brief overview of APHRC and the Good Grant Practice Virtual Academy. I'm sure most of you have heard about GGPVA, and my colleague Joseph Kishuru will take us through this. Then we'll have the presentation from Nancy Kangete, and then we'll have a chance to interact with more HR practitioners, and they'll be able to share more insights. And then we'll have a chance for Q&A with you, the participants, but at any time you can share with us your questions through the Q&A feature, and you can use the chat feature to make comments, but we prefer if you use the Q&A feature for questions. And then we'll close at 5. I think I can welcome Joseph Kishuru to just give us a brief overview of the project in APHRC, and then we'll move to the presentation. Joseph, welcome. You're muted, Joseph.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Very happy to welcome you to this webinar. I am the Deputy Executive Director at the African Population and Health Research Center. And I am also the lead in terms of the program that has organized this webinar. And not all of you will have interacted with APHRC before, but as our name suggests, we are a research center, Africa Population and Health Research Center. So research is in our name. And the name also indicates some of our core programs. There's P for population, and there is health. So we deal mainly with population health. Our vision is to transform lives in Africa through research. And this we do by actually doing the research and using that to inform decisions that impact lives in Africa. We also work to make sure that there are many others who are able to do the same kind of research that we do, and that underpins the research capacity strengthening program. And this webinar is actually organized by the Research Capacity Strengthening Unit. We call it Research and Related Capacity Strengthening Unit. And we talk about research, the impactful research being one that leads to decisions. So there are decisions in many areas. It could be in the area of policy. Perhaps you're looking at a new policy, maybe amending an old one, operationalizing a policy that was there but has not been working. Other than that, it could be about program implementation, like you want to implement a program in WASH, So you look at what has been written on WASH as you plan your program. So evidence informs program implementation. It could be the area of service delivery. So you are looking at what is the best model to offer this service. How is this service being given to the people? Uh, it could be innovations or new ways of doing things. It could be tools. And finally, it could also be about individual and community behavior. And our research program is in 4 areas. We have health and well-being. We have human development, or as other people call it, education. Then we have population dynamics and urbanization. Then we also have a data science program. And the research and related capacity strengthening program has 3 areas. There's the individual capacity strengthening. Then there is institutional capacity strengthening. And then the systemic or ecosystem building. This is where you are looking at things that affect the whole ecosystem. Like now, the good glance practice virtual academy is based on the good glance financial practice standard, and that is a standard that affects the ecosystem. It helps improve the ecosystems in as far as governance systems and processes are concerned. And we also have a third unit, which is policy engagement and communication. And this area of program is the one that now helps us to go out and engage with our stakeholders and the publics with our evidence. And we have been in operation since 2001. That's when we started. Nairobi, Kenya is our head office. We have our West Africa regional office in Dakar, Senegal. And we are currently running programs in about 35 countries in Africa, and a few outside Africa. That is actually our programs also go even into Europe, Asia, and Southern America. But we are a little bit thin in those areas. We are stronger in the African continent. And basically, we have the Good Glance Practice Virtual Academy that is hosting this webinar. And its intervention is in 3 areas. One is the training. And so we have courses on our virtual academy, or virtual learning academy. That's why it's called GGPVA. And you are welcome to undertake courses there if you have not. And in terms of training, there are also the webinars. And what the webinars seek to do is to go deeper into some of the areas. So the areas represented in the courses are financial management, human resource management, procurement, and governance. And today's webinar is on the area of human resource management. So if you go to the Virtual Learning Academy, you get a course on human resource management, but it is very broad. And so like today now, we dive deep, and we have done that for a number of areas. Besides the training, we are also putting the people who are involved in the programs in a community of practice so that they are able to learn from one another. And finally, the third strand is the GFGP, that is Good Financial Grant Practice, where institutions are assessing themselves against the standard, that is the GFGP standard. This is an African standard where you can assess yourself at bronze, silver, gold, and then platinum. APHRC has been certified at the highest level, which is platinum. And so we've been helping organizations to do their assessments, have those assessment reviewed, and get them to move on to certification, which tells you that once you're certified, you have met all the requirements of the standard in the particular category that you have been assessed. So I'm very happy to welcome you to this webinar, and we are here to all learn and contribute. And so feel free to keep putting your comments on the chat. There's a Q&A function that you can use, and some of us will be answering some of the questions as we go along. But there will still be a question and answer session, as you have seen from the program that Anne has given. So thank you very much and welcome. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Joseph. It's always nice to hear when you talk about APHRC as if I do not work here. I've shared the link to the courses in the chat. Please look at the 8 courses, I believe there are 8, and see what is relevant to you or your colleagues. Now we will move to Nancy, and it is a pleasure to have you today, Nancy. Nancy is a seasoned people and culture, or what we've been calling human resources. And she has vast experience in recruitment, staff health and safety, and performance management. And I'm sure Nancy will tell us a little bit more about yourself before you dive into the presentation. We're glad to have you, and we are looking forward to learning more about HR and successful project implementation. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Anne, for that brief introduction and for this opportunity to present on the topic of people power policies that make or break a project. I wish to welcome all our participants. It's a pleasure to be sharing this session with you. As you've heard, I'm Nancy Kang'ethe. I work at APHRC within the People and Culture Unit. I serve alongside a dedicated team of HR professionals, researchers, and other professionals within the center. So that I do not waste so much time, I'll just dive straight into the presentation. I'll be sharing my screen shortly. And you let me know when my screen comes on.
Not yet, but yes.
It's on, is it?
Yes, it's on. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So once again, our topic today is people power, policies that make or break a project. So the purpose of this topic is to share briefly with you about the importance of HR policies within an institution and how they contribute to the success of projects. And this will be the outline of our presentation. We'll be talking about briefly about HR policies, what makes good HR policies, and how they contribute to the success of the project, and how these policies, if not well designed, could contribute to project failure, and how we need to strengthen people's ability. And by people here, I mean employees and other people who participate in project implementation, to apply these policies and to comply with them. And as you've heard, this project is under GGP VA. So we'll be looking at how these policies contribute or align to good grant practice. And then we'll have the conclusion and key takeaways. So what are HR policies in any institution? So basically, these are the guidelines that stipulate the approach an organization intends to adopt in managing its people and operations. And without these guidelines, then it would mean that there's chaos, there's a lack of consistency and alignment to organizational values. Policies are also good reference points for employment practices. They inform decision-making because they guide actions that should be taken in certain situations. They also act as a risk management for any organization and guide people towards accountability. We could therefore say that policies are rules of the game because of how important they are. They help to shape the culture of an institution because they determine the behavior towards how people relate with each other, how people perform their work. And they also help to enhance performance because it would mean then that actions are properly guided, and they also contribute to the success of an institution. Just to illustrate the point of the importance of HR policies in any institution, we look at this case. It was in the public domain, so I believe some of you may have come across it. It's a case that happened in 2010 when Oxfam sent some of its staff to Haiti after the earthquake for them to support to support the incident that occurred after the earthquake. So during this time, some of the misconduct happened, and this involved quite a number of senior officials. But unfortunately, because of the guidelines that were there, which may not have been robust enough to guide certain actions and decisions and processes, the processes that were followed in investigating the case were not well documented. There was cases whereby some staff were allowed and senior staff were allowed to resign without proper investigations. That by resigning, I mean quietly resigning. They were given the option to resign. And later in 2018, this incident became public, and it revealed certain gaps in the policies, and particularly the safeguarding policy. It revealed that there was a poor work culture, there was bullying, there was the senior staff were involved in paying for sex. And as a result of this scandal, the consequences were very severe. It led to significant loss of funds. As you can see, quite a significant number of donors withdrew. The government withdrew its support to Oxfam, and there was also suspension of funding by the Swedish government. This also led to the Charities Commission issuing an official warning to Oxfam to address its shortcomings. And there was an impending reduction in funding, and largely this led to reputational damage of the institution. So we clearly see gaps here because if, for example, the safeguarding policy was very well documented, robust, investigations conducted, if there were processes for reporting, then the issue could have been addressed in good time. And then appropriate actions would have been taken against the perpetrators. And this would also mean that proper recording of the misconduct would have happened, meaning that in case those perpetrators applied for positions elsewhere, then reference checks would have revealed that, you know, they were involved in these misconducts. However, because they were allowed to resign, then it would mean had they gone elsewhere to look for jobs, they would have easily been offered those positions because there was no documented evidence showing how they were involved in the misconduct. So going back to our topic about people power. So we all know that in every institution, policies are meant to guide the way people conduct themselves, the way operations are executed, and they are implemented by people. Oversight on compliance is done by people, and therefore we need to ensure that our policies empower people at all levels. And how people can apply these policies is by ensuring that they understand the policies, they are well trained, they are made aware of the provisions of policies. It's important to make sure that they own the policies, and they can only own by understanding how useful they are to their work. And policies also help people to trust the processes. Policies help to protect people, like we have seen in the earlier case. Guidelines are made clear so that people are protected. They protect funds, like in the earlier case that we have seen. They also help to protect the reputation of an institution. And compliance is shaped by staff behavior and leadership. We've seen in the case of Oxfam that it is senior leaders who are involved in the misconduct. So in any institution, there is it's very important for the leadership to model compliance. And this will also trickle down to every stakeholder. Why are HR policies critical in any institution? This is because they provide clear direction and consistency in terms of actions and consequences. They ensure there's consistency in application, and they are applied uniformly across the institution and in every related situation. They facilitate decision-making because they provide clear guidelines on actions to be taken. They also help to align project goals with the organizational values. They enable effective risk management and compliance to legal provisions of the country of operation. Policies also help to enhance efficiency and resource management in any institution. And this is because with the proper guidelines that direct people on how things should be done, then it is easy for work to be done in an efficient manner. They clarify their rights of the people it applies to, their responsibilities, and they also clarify who is charged with making decisions. They guide behaviors and streamline conflict resolution. We know that where people are working together, sometimes there are possibilities of conflict happening. And overall, policies are supposed to be well intended, and they help to create and promote positive work environment. So at this point, I'd like you to reflect about HR policies in your own institution and ask yourself, which policies have helped your projects? Are there some that you can quickly think of that you quickly refer to on a regular basis, maybe when you want to make a decision, when you want to understand a certain procedure? And please, you can put your comments in the chat to state which policies help your projects. In a minute, you could put your comments in the chat. Which policies do you think help your projects as you implement from inception to completion of the project cycle? And do we have feedback from participants? Yes, I can see chats coming through.
Yes, Nancy, we have a few. Do you want me to read them or you will?
It's okay. That's good. I think people can see their comments. So because of time, then I'll move to the next question. Which policies, in your opinion, do you think have hindered your projects? This is for you to reflect about your institution and the policies that you have. Are there any that you think are usually not very helpful to your projects? Please keep adding your comments to the chats. Any policies that hinder your projects? I can see this one seems to be a tough one. People are still reflecting, but I think it's also a good sign that many of us have policies that are helpful to our institutions and our projects. So then we'll move on to the next slide, even as people continue to reflect on policies that hinder their projects. Okay, sorry, I'm having problems moving my slides. Okay, so then I'll move on to critical attributes of a good policies. Our topic is policies that make or break projects. And while policies are written with good intentions, at times there could be attributes that could help make these policies useful. And this, I would say, they are attributes, good attributes of a good policy. So just to move on, my apologies, my slides are not moving. So I think I'll stop sharing and share again.
As you do that, Nancy, the chart is very interesting with the policies that are coming out to help or hinder. And I hope that during the Q&A, some of the people who've talked about these policies can have a chance to elaborate on and give us practical examples. It will be interesting to hear.
Okay, yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah, sure, I agree. Okay, so now I think my slides are working okay now. So some of the key attributes of a good policy and what we would call policies that help to make or contribute to project success is accountability. A well-written policy should clearly define the responsibilities. And in this, I mean responsibilities of those who the policy applies to, and clearly identify the consequences that would result to non-compliance. A policy should be very clear in terms of the way it is written. It should be an ambiguous language should be used. The purpose of the policy should be clear, and it should also consider the audience of this policy. And if at all there are any instances where this policy would exempt, then that should also be stated in the policy. It's also very important to ensure that they are transparent, such that rules and rationale are open and accessible to everyone. They should be placed in a place where anyone can easily access at any given point when they want to make reference to them. And it should also be consistent. Consistency here means that the policy should align with the laws of the land where the projects are being implemented. It should align with the values of the institution, and it should also be applied uniformly across the institution and across similar or relevant similar situations, so that we can avoid bias, because if they're not applied uniformly, then that would mean that the policies may be used to favor some people and not others. It's also important to ensure specificity in the way this policy is designed. It should provide enough detail to guide decisions. It shouldn't leave room for guesswork. It should also define the roles and procedures to be followed in taking certain actions or making decisions. Relevance is also very key. It should address real needs of the institution and the projects. By this, I mean that an institution should consider the current situations and ask themselves, are these policies addressing the current needs that we have? And if not, is it time to review the policies? And therefore, they should be reviewed periodically to align with the changing needs of the sector or of the market. Enforceability is also very key, because there's no need of having policies that cannot be enforced. And there should be clear enforcement mechanisms in terms of consequences or actions that should be taken, and they should be practical. The enforcement mechanisms should be practical, meaning that they should be things that can be easily applied. Flexibility is also very key, because it allows for adaptation of policies based on the circumstances at hand, and feasibility in terms of how realistic or implementable are these policies within the available resources. They should not be overly burdensome to the administrators or the institution, such that they appear to be just be written for the sake of it, but not to be implemented. So we'll look at critical policies for projects. And when I'm talking at critical policies for the success of projects, here we'll be covering just a few. They could be as many as how different institutions think certain things apply to them. And also, as I go through the critical policies for the success of a project, it's also good to remember that different institutions apply different processes. You may find an institution having one HR policy guideline or manual that has all these policies in one document. And in other instances, you'll find that they are, each policy is independent from the HR manual, or the HR manual could only contain the summary of the policies, but also have a more detailed policy document separately. Recruitment and selection policy is one of the key policies. And it is important because it provides guidelines that ensure recruitment is transparent, thorough, and is competitive and well aligned to the needs of the project. A good policy ensures that there is no bias in identifying and selecting talent. It also reduces the risk of non-performance, because if a policy clearly outlines how an organization should recruit competitively, then chances are high that the right talent will be hired for the right positions. And in case of a policy not being clear and robust, it means then that is a weak recruitment policy, and the risk for that would be unqualified hires. It could also mean fraud, because maybe if a policy is not robust enough, then proper reference checks may not have been done. There could be incidents of nepotism and all that. The other key policy is or guideline is onboarding guidelines. And in many instances, you'll find that this is part of the recruitment selection and onboarding policy. And why this is very important is because it ensures that new hires are well integrated into the institution. When they come, their roles are clarified, expectations are set, and this facilitates understanding of institutional policies and project objectives. It also ensures that new hires have a good understanding of compliance requirements, reporting lines, hence contributing to the success of a project. We've seen that many times that projects have very strict implementation timelines. And so if employees are onboarded properly, then there will be reduced errors and they will become productive faster. Performance management is also another key policy because it provides guidelines for setting goals that are tied to project indicators. They provide guidelines for documentation of performance objectives and how evaluation should be done. They also make it clear to supervisors about the need for continuous feedback to their supervisees and how they should recognize good performance. They also help employees to understand how their career progression is defined in the institution and how they can be supported to upskill themselves. They provide mechanisms for handling poor performance because if these mechanisms are not well documented, then things will be done haphazardly. There will be lack of consistency, and having this policy then encourages institutions or supervisors within a project to, give timely feedback if there's performance gaps, how to go about project improvement plans, and how they can escalate any performance issues. And lack of these policies then would lead to delays in project implementation, unmet targets, and lack of donor satisfaction. There's compensation and benefits policy, which is also very key, and it contributes a lot to how employees get motivated in an institution. And these guidelines should provide guidelines for fair and competitive and transparent procedures for setting pay structures, how the pay structure should be reviewed, and this should be documented, and how performance is recognized. And we all know that this recognizing good performance is a powerful driver for organization success. And they also help once staff believe and trust their compensation, that their compensation and benefits is transparent and competitive, then they will be motivated, and this will result to desired project outcomes. These policies also help organizations to ensure compliance with laws and to align with donor cost principles. The other one is code of conduct, ethics, and safeguarding. Some institutions may prefer to separate these policies or guidelines, but for the sake of this webinar, I'll summarize about their importance. These policies define acceptable behaviors for employees, the way they should relate with project partners, the communities we work with, and they promote a safe workspace for everyone. With the code of conduct and people's behaviors being acceptable, it means that the organization's reputation will be enhanced. And having safeguarding policies in place, it means then an institution will have a good and open framework for implementing project activities in ways that minimize risk of harm. And this may include discrimination, exploitation, or any form of abuse. These policies also provide guidelines for mandatory reporting in case of misconduct, either confirmed or suspected. The other policy that is critical is conflict of interest and whistleblowing, very critical for every institution, and it sets out clear guidelines that help to reduce the risk of misconduct and unethical behavior. It also helps to protect organizations' integrity, because when people come out clearly to declare any conflict of interest, proper procedures will be followed with regards to dealing with that matter. In case of misconduct, then this will be brought to the attention of the relevant people in good time, and such misconduct will be addressed. They also help to enhance accountability of the institutions and individuals in these institutions, and to promote transparency. Moving on to the next policy is, I'm again having issues with my reporting. And any comments on the chat as I sort out my slides again? Okay, so it has moved. So the other policy is HR or guideline is HR record keeping and documentation, which is very key. For some institutions, you'll find them as part of the HR manual. Why HR record keeping is important is because it's very key in ensuring accurate personnel files are kept. Payroll details are well kept and documented. Any performance reports or disciplinary issues are well documented for future reference. And these are also very critical documents during audit. We also see many times during due diligence, donor due diligence, they ask for personnel files. And if documentation is weak, then this would lead to questioned costs. And in case of any litigation, then there would be no documents to make reference to. The other policy is a grievance handling and conflict resolution. In any work setup, it's expected that as people work together, there could be disagreements could arise. And it's important to have guidelines that provide for fair, confidential processes for people to raise any concerns, and how these concerns would be resolved without any fear of retribution. It ensures project implementation timelines are not adversely affected by lack of harmony amongst team members. The other policy is attendance and attendance management and flexible work hours, also a key component of any HR manual. And why it's important is because it helps individuals in a project or an institution understand what their entitlements are in terms of work hours, leave entitlements, how absenteeism can be managed. This would guide supervisors how they will manage absenteeism, and it ensures accountability for time we charge to project funding. It also supports work-life balance because it gives guidelines of when people should take leave. It also reduces the risk of burnout. And we've also seen this since COVID struck, that many institutions have introduced hybrid or remote work arrangements for their staff. And these guidelines help to ensure that guidelines are given for how people should remain productive while working remotely, how they should communicate, and how they should ensure they protect the data of the institution. Health and safety and wellness also combined, but in some cases they could be separated to have health and safety, and some institutions will have a wellness policy. These are important because in any work environment, we need to ensure the safety of our staff, our projects, our partners, the communities we work with, and measures should be put in place to prevent unsafe work environment. It helps to promote wellness, reduce burnout in the case of wellness, and it also reduces possibilities of accidents because clear guidelines will be provided in terms of how activities should be run such that accidents are prevented, and it also helps to minimize the risk of potential litigation, because in some cases where there are accidents, some people, we could find either employees or project partners suing the institution. The other policy that is also very critical is data protection policy. This ensures ethical handling of personal data and helps to minimize legal and regulatory risks. And it's very critical in any type of organization. And I'm sure you've all seen lately that there are people who've been, suing because of their personal data being mishandled. I have mentioned just a number of policies. For research institutions, there could be ethical research ethics policies, and depending on the institution one comes from, then there could be other policies that I have not mentioned here. There are quite a number. So I'll move on to the next part of our presentation, which is a common policy pitfalls that break projects. And these are those things that institutions may fail to do while they may have good policies or well-designed policies. These policies may not then be made aware to staff so that they are able to use or apply the policies. And one of them is poor communication. There's need to have regular sensitization of the contents of the policies. And so if there's lack of that, then a policy will not be useful enough. There could be a cultural mismatch whereby employees resist the policies, the guidelines in the policies, and this could be because maybe they do not believe in the value these policies add to their work. There could be cases where some people bypass the set controls within these policies. And there could also be incidents of non-compliance to policies where there is no enforcement of consequences. And where there is no enforcement of consequences, then it would mean there's a deterrence to compliance. And once that becomes a practice or a habit within an institution, then people will not see the need. Those who may have been complying to policies, then they will not see the need. That could also lead to demotivation, whereby people will see just policies as being there for the sake of them being there. They could also lead to safeguarding violations. And the other one is weak oversight, where there is weak or inconsistent application of policies, then it means that bias will be introduced. These policies will not apply consistently to everyone in the institution, and that would lead to the policies not working well for the projects. We also find that sometimes policies become outdated, and there is failure to update them regularly to align with the changing laws. Policies not being aligned or updated to align with the emerging trends and the best practice in the market. That could also lead to, could also be a pitfall to the success of projects. And so we say poorly structured policies affect the morale of staff, because then it means the policy does not work well for them, increases turnover, it brings about inefficiencies, because many things may not have been considered, or the policies may not have been well thought out to ensure that they serve the needs of the organization, of the projects, and the emerging trends and best practice. So how do we strengthen organizational people power? We've said that people are the implementers of the policies, they are the implementers of projects, so they need to understand them, they need to be empowered to apply these policies. It is important to ensure regular policy training and awareness sessions for staff. It is not enough to just document the policies, have them in a shared folder. Instead, there should be regular sensitization of the provisions of these policies so that people understand them, they own them, and they apply them. The leadership of the institution should model compliance. Where there is lack of compliance, then it means that other people will follow. Where there is lack of compliance by the leadership, other people then will just follow suit. It's important to promote a culture of feedback and accountability. When we have policies, do we allow for feedback from our staff, from our project implementers, so that we understand whether these policies are working for them or not? Projects are implemented in different circumstances in different contexts. Are we allowing our staff to give us feedback about how a certain policy is working well and whether there is need for it to be revised or tweaked, to align, to be able to support them when it comes to implementation? Are we promoting a culture of accountability in our institutions across all levels? And have we put together tools that support implementation? So people need to have an easy way to help them implement these policies. So templates and checklists are tools that could come handy in helping them implement the policies. So linking policies to good grant practice. So well thought out, and when policies are well thought out and broad to address key grants requirements, would mean that they are supporting compliance to the donor requirements. The other one is risk management, where we say that policy should anticipate operational and financial and reputational risks, so that the way they are designed or written should consider what risks these policies are coming in to address or to prevent. We should also be thinking of sustainability of the policies and embedding them to ensure continuity beyond grant cycles, because different grants come or different donors come on board, others leave. So the policies that are developed in an institution should be, forward-looking and broad, so that they ensure continuity beyond a certain grant period. There should also be ownership. Policies should be designed in such a manner that they transfer the power to implement to the people. The power and the responsibility. People should understand them. They should be empowered to implement these policies and to enforce. And it should also be clear which people are given the authority to make decisions in relation to certain actions. So in conclusion, we can say that people issues can easily derail technically sound projects. And therefore, strong policies help to build trust and drive impact. And compliance must be intentional for all of us. We shouldn't think that compliance is only for HR to enforce or the leadership of an institution. It is for everyone. If a project is to succeed and if an institution is to succeed, then we should all be intentional in ensuring compliance. Everyone also has a role in upholding compliance of policies. And finally, we say that strong HR policies are there to protect people, to protect all of us as employees of an institution, implementers of projects. They are there to protect our donors. They are there to protect our programs, and thereby achieving the impact that you want to achieve. I think that's all, Anne, from me. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please let's appreciate Nancy. We can clap or send her some virtual appreciation. That was a great presentation. So much to learn. Indeed, policies must empower the people. It is everybody's responsibility. To help us think about policies and projects in the practical sense, we have our colleagues Lillian Okoth and Joseph Kanyugo, and we'll delve into some, because we want to see these policies in action. Lillian Okoth is the head of corporate function at APHRC. She oversees people and culture, or HR, and Joseph Kanyugo is people and culture business partner, but they'll briefly introduce or say more about themselves as they respond to some of the queries that we have. I hope, Nancy, that you had a chance to have some water, because I would want to pick up from you before we get to hear from Lillian. And maybe from your experience, I know you've been at APHRC for some time. Which HR policy, if you can pick on one, or people-driven system decision, has made the biggest positive difference in project delivery? And maybe you can elaborate on why, Nancy.
Sorry, thank you, Anne, for your question. So, in response to your question, and based on my time at APHRC, and my colleagues at the center will agree with me, is that APHRC has a robust safeguarding policy, and the center has invested a lot in ensuring staff are sensitized about their rights, their responsibilities, the investigation processes and actions that would be taken following the outcome of the investigations. So for me, that is one thing that I would point out. And just to mention that APHRC has zero tolerance on any form of abuse, harassment, discrimination, exploitation, and of any person. And some of the ways that this policy has helped to cause a positive difference to project delivery, because the policy also speaks not just to our staff, but also talks about how our project partners, the community, should be protected. So I would say that this policy ensures that gives rules that prevent any form of abuse or harm to people, and therefore people feel safe. And this then means that our project activities run smoothly. It also helps to prevent operational and legal risks, because our projects have continued to run smoothly without disruptions resulting from any violations that are that trigger investigations. We have not experienced any donor sanctions or funding cuts. And there's also strong donor confidence in our policies, because every time we have new applications and there's need for due diligence, and we are asked to provide our policies for to be looked at in the due diligence. And so with time, donors have come to know that we have solid practices, and this has created credibility. It has enhanced confidence of the center, and I would say it has largely contributed to successful funding applications. It has also strengthened staff morale, because our staff know that any form of misconduct is addressed, and this helps to keep them motivated, and therefore they focus on their work fully. And finally, I could say that it has enhanced trust between us and our partners. And these strong partnerships is because the communities and the partners we work with know that the center deals with them in an ethical and respectful manner, and therefore this enhances the success and impact of our projects. That's what I could say in summary, and thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Quite some good reflections there. And Lillian, welcome. one of the comments, actually a few of the comments in the chat from the participants, is that institutional policies and processes often slow down implementation of projects. And often our projects will be fast moving. And maybe you can elaborate in fast moving projects with tight timelines, where do HR processes most often become bottlenecks? And what practical adjustments have you seen work at APHRC?
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Nancy, for a great presentation. I would say that HR systems or processes really are important for the success of any projects, because the HR team works with project teams just to ensure that they get the right talent, people with the right skill set, right to be aligned with project goals, so that we can reduce risks and also ensure they are delivering the best results. However, as you say, sometimes there are bottlenecks, and such bottlenecks may include, say, talent sourcing delays, as well as onboarding delays. Sometimes the processes for recruitment are really lengthy, especially when there are short-term projects and there is no expertise in the house, and yet the team needs to implement immediately. For most organizations, we know that the lead time is 1 to 3 months, depending on the role. But for more senior roles, it could even take 6 months to hire, or for hard to fill skills. And then sometimes people have unclear job descriptions, so it makes the project to hire a wrong talent potentially. Sometimes there's lack of cross-function alignment. You find that the hiring team, the HR, and the finance, they are not aligned in what is required. So those are some of the bottlenecks. I mean, the list is long, but I'll just give those 3 for now. Then in terms of practical adjustments, at APHRC, really for us, it depends on the issue. So if I take the first example on talent management, on talent sourcing rather, we encourage our project teams to start hiring, as soon as they get a green light that a project will be funded. Even if it's 6 months before, they're encouraged to start, submitting a staff requisition, which would then be detailed, including a proper job description. And this is shared with the HR team, the finance team, for at least approvals. And then as soon as that is received, we advertise. For hard to fill skills and very senior roles, we headhunt. We also work with the HR outsourcing firms who already have talent pools, and they help us with the sourcing and also fast tracking. And then if project implementation must start at very short notice, because sometimes you have very short projects and you don't need to hire somebody for a long time. Our regular positions are 1 to 3 years. So for shorter than that, we work with consultants or temporary staff, as long as they have required skills. But even with that, we still advertise. And then while the recruitment processes are ongoing, just to avoid delays, we get that, and ensuring that the existing staff do not suffer burnout. Sometimes we also advertise on a rolling basis, so we may need a research officer for a particular project, but we know that the skill set may still be required if we are implementing other projects, so we may keep advertisements open, and we interview on a rolling basis. And then we also have a talent pool from where we source. Then for project implementation outside the country, because we work across 35 countries in Africa, we partner with recruiters who already have experience in those countries. And sometimes we also are implementing projects with some partners, so they also support us in talent sourcing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. And picking up on staffing, you've talked about short-term roles, teams, and Joseph Kanyugo can help us reflect on this. HR policies have to be flexible. On one hand, we have institutional compliance. On the other hand, we have these terms that are coming in the project, needs people fast, needs people maybe on a short-term basis. So Joseph, maybe you can help us think about how can we balance as people and culture teams, how can we balance between, institutional compliance and this flexibility that sometimes projects require in terms of staffing?
Thank you, Anne. I think we can look at it in this sense, is that structure is essential. Yeah, and so is agility, which we can also, which is essentially what is the speed of delivery of implementation. We can look at compliance as the guardrails that we have put in place, the policies, procedures, guidelines, and codes, while this agility is the ability to simply navigate the path to desirable outcomes, what we want at the end or at the closure of the project. And hence the trick lies in bridging these two critical aspects during project implementation. To that effect, I would propose a few remedies in achieving a practical yet impactful manner. And one of them is that the role of HR needs to shift from that of gatekeeper to become that of a platform builder. And this means that HR practitioners are required to change mindset from that mindset of police, whose traditional role is enforcing standards and guidelines, which oftentimes, as you can agree, are rigid and even tone deaf to the realities of the project. And when Nancy asked us to list policies that we consider to have hindered progress in our projects, we saw that a whole list of them came up. And therefore, now the next thing is to start being, is that now HR practitioners will need to start being themselves as strategic partners for projects by becoming enablers. And how we do this is by building platforms capable of delivering a diverse array of options as far as project talent requirements are concerned. An example I'll give is that, like we can have ready talent pools and candidate databases, which has the effect of, we avoid the need to initiate the entire recruitment cycle from scratch every time a vacancy arises. And this is more relevant for the hard to fill roles, which tend to have a painfully lengthy turnaround time and impact project delivery adversely, for any single day that position stays unfilled. And this therefore speaks to the need for the HR practitioners becoming experts in providing those fast-tracked recruitment pathways for time-bound projects. Another remedy I would offer is that it's paramount for HR people or HR practitioners to transform their focus to that of outcome orientation. And one of the trends that is fast emerging is the need to cut back on the rigors of routine when those procedures, the nitty-gritty of the procedures, are not considered to add value to the bottom line, because some of the procedures that we may have, these extensive procedures that we have in our manuals, maybe there could be things that were done 10, 15 years ago and are no longer relevant. So it does not necessarily help that every time we have to stick to them or stick to that manual like a Bible. So an example would be the conventional performance management systems, whereby these traditional annual reviews often miss the fast pace and high stakes of project delivery. HR can introduce aspects like project-specific performance cycles, performance cycles that are tied to the implementation of the different projects that we have running. We can also have team-based goals or shared goals. Another could also have milestone assessments, assessments or evaluations that are based on particular milestones that are relevant or have and also predetermined for the different projects. And this makes accountability both fair and at the same time meaningful. So overall, when people know how their work will be measured right from the onset, they can prioritize better and also empower and also feel empowered to step up and collaborate across the traditional boundaries as we know them. And that's essentially how projects succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. I think I like people and culture better than people police. And to all of you, and we can start with Lillian, Nancy, then Joseph. If there's one HR policy that you could change that could improve project implementation in research institutions, universities, and maybe even public institutions, what would that be and why?
Wow. Okay. Maybe I'll speak about practices. I think that research institutions should automate processes. So like earlier we were talking about, bottlenecks like talent sourcing delays, etc. I think if processes such as talent acquisition, performance management, data management, if all those are automated, it would really help because those would reduce delays in performing tasks that are generally performed manually. And then they could even be accessed via cell phones. So somebody maybe is required to do a performance management and they can access the platform online, they can do that. In addition, automation would help in timely generation of reports because now the world relies on data and any proper institution should make data-driven decisions. So automation really helps with that. Lastly, I think institutions can also organize or attend career fairs, particularly with regards to talent sourcing at institutions of higher learning, and then they can spot talents from there. Currently, even some organizations work with universities to actually co-create curricula for certain disciplines in order to align with the organization's strategic priorities. So it's like thinking ahead, what talent pool do I need in the next 3 to 5 years and where can I get it? Maybe the institution has been struggling, so co-creating the curriculum makes sure that you get the right skill set, and maybe they can even co-facilitate some of those courses. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydian. Nancy?
Thanks, Anne. And Lillian and Joseph for your good responses. So for me, I think what comes to mind is a practice. And I want to imagine that many institutions may be represented here could depend on donor funding to run their projects. And we see that many times, our researchers are also the ones who are charged with, a lot of their time is dedicated also to fundraising. So for me, if funds would allow, I would propose that we have a team fully dedicated to fundraising so that researchers can focus on their research work and so that, and fundraising can be, be done by this team that is fully dedicated to doing that work. Because combining both fundraising and designing new projects, implementing projects can be overwhelming. And as HR, we say that we want to ensure there is work-life balance for all. We are promoting, workspaces that support mental health. So reducing this load from researchers, I think, would ensure that they run projects efficiently and, they have time to innovate and, to just balance their work and not be overwhelmed by the need to spend so much time writing proposals and at the same time also thinking about whether their projects are being run efficiently by the field workers or by the people who are supporting them in project implementation. So that would be my recommendation if funds allow. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And lastly, can you go?
Thank you, Anne. I'll also speak about practice rather than talk about altering a specific HR-centric policy. And this is more about transforming how we go about project conception as well as inception. And when HR are invited into project planning early enough, and this means before proposals are submitted or even the work plans finalized, they can help with a number of things, including things like designing staffing models, advising on realistic timelines, and even going as far ahead as flagging policy constraints well in advance. And this prevents bottlenecks and essentially positions HR as a co-owner of project success. And so when HR and project teams work together, right, from the onset, we create an environment where these teams can move quickly and safely, at the same time staying accountable and ultimately delivering the desired results. So this means that, when HR is in that table, when the projects are being conceptualized, is that now we're able to proactively address bottlenecks and get ahead of the challenges. Because most of the times you find that now we have to work backwards, when the grant has passed and it's implementation time. And therefore, some of the proposals that are coming up from the project team, they're not only unrealistic in terms of the timelines, and also some of the things that were embedded into the proposals were, some of them are, I would say, for lack of a better word, in flagrant disregard of what we have in the policies or what we need to comply to. Therefore, you have to work backwards and, basically you are eating into the time that should already be going into implementation. So talking about positioning HR as a co-owner of project success means that, it's involvement, it's brainstorming and picking each other's brains right from the start. Yeah, I think that would be my one proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an interesting proposal. And I think to summarize your great contributions, being at APHRC and seeing how some of the strategies and approaches you've talked about are or have been implemented, and it's made the whole process of bringing teams together and implementing projects more responsive and efficient. I can say that they work. And obviously changing to people and culture was a great touch. And I hope that our participants can pick a thing or two from that. We have about 10 minutes to the close of the session, and it would be great to hear from some of our participants before we wind up. Thank you so much, Lillian, Nancy, and Kanyugo. If you would, from the participants, if you'd want to, have some reflections, some questions, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. It would be great to hear from you and also hear about how these processes are in your institutions. So please go ahead, or you can put the question in the chat. But yeah, we've been interacting with the comments in the chat, and we are glad that you found the session to be worthwhile. So maybe we can have 2 or 3 people in the interest of time, and then we close the session. Okay, don't seem to see any hands raised. So I think we can save, yes, and we'll be sharing the presentations and the recording in due time. Some of the questions had been answered in the chat. Okay, Hastings, I'm going to allow you to talk. You can just come up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. I think I missed the first part of the presentation, but I think I joined in and I heard all the questions. What I think concurred with, I think it should have been the second speaker who was talking about why policies are important in the organization and the role that HR plays in the in an organization. I think one thing that I just needed to add is that I think she mentioned it in terms of the legal aspect of maybe stopping the project because someone has gone to court because you didn't have policies that are clear on certain matters, or because an employee feels they've been their rights have been trampled upon, or it may be something that is against the law, that the decision that is taken is against the law. So it's very important that as we craft our policies, that we also look at our in-country laws so that we take into consideration the updates of the laws. But not only that, there are also issues of legal cases that are going on in courts. And as HR practitioners, maybe working in a project or working for an NGO, you need to be abreast with what is going on in the courts, because sometimes you can have a policy that is redundant and yet the law has moved on. So we actually also just need to get abreast with what is going on in the court, much as we have our ears to the ground of the changes that are taking place, whether in our registration in Parliament, so that we are not left behind. But in another aspect, I think HR plays a much critical role in the movement of our staff in terms of support. When it comes to support, whether it's movement for, if you are working for an NGO, you have deadlines, you have staff that are moving, you have transport that has to be prepared, per diem and all that kind of stuff. And also just making sure the staff are doing the right thing where they are going and they're able to tick their boxes, maybe in terms of the KPIs that have been given. All that is performance side of it, whether it's a performance management policy, it plays a role in also shaping the performance of our staff. So that if we have staff in our organizations that are not up to the standard that we need and they are untrainable, they can be shown the exit doors for the sake of the project outcome that you have targeted. I think it's been a very good interaction from the speakers, and I've learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perfect reflections and a way to summarize. And we have about 5 minutes. I would want to invite the panel, including Joseph, in case we have further reflections. If not, I think we can close the session at this point. Lillian, Joseph, can you go? Nancy and Joseph Gishuru, anything to add before we close the session? Otherwise, thank you so much, Hastings, for the reflections. Or do you have further reflections from what Hastings has talked about, Nancy?
Okay,
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so mine is just to emphasize the need for awareness creation. So sensitize. Let's also take the time to read and understand our policies. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks, Nancy. Maybe just a reflection on Hastings' comment. At APHRC, we review policies every 3 years. That's really the minimum, sometimes earlier if need be. So just to encourage other institutions to do the same, we review in line with, changing labor laws, but also the practice within the organization. Thanks everyone for your comments. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. Can you go, Joseph Gishuru, any parting shots?
What I would say, Anne, is that we live and operate in a fast-paced and dynamic environment, and therefore we cannot stay at the same place, for long. We therefore need to keep learning, know what's happening out there, know the changes in the landscape in which we operate, and what are the best practices, what are the emerging trends, and adjust accordingly. So I think now that will just keep us in a better place, and it's a cycle of continuous improvement. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Joseph.
Mine is to thank all of you for making time to attend this important webinar, and to indicate that we also have to look at our context. I think Hastings talked about the laws of the land. There are different laws in different countries. And so people and culture partners have to look at the context in which they operate as well. And if you are operating in multiple countries, to have policies that are contextualized. You could even have a policy for a particular region because that region operates that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, our lovely speakers. I know most of our participants have been attending this is our 5th webinar this year, and we appreciate the engagement we've had through the webinars, the courses and other engagements. Mine is to thank you for today. And we hope that we get to interact more next year, and to wish you happy holidays. And yeah, stay safe, and we will connect next year, hopefully. Thank you and goodbye.